All right, we're live with Lloyd Brown. Why whales, not whales, why wells fail. How's it going, brother?
Oh man, it's all the good. How about you?
Doing good, doing good. Looking forward to another good conversation with you as we walk through learning about all the reasons why protecting reputations is more important than people realize. Today, we're protecting reputations, not just wells. Why, this is a big part of your culture, Lloyd. Why are you so deliberate about this?
Well, I think ultimately it's when you experience failure and you go back and look at the consequence of failure. One of the lessons that I've learned in my career is rebuilding your reputation is takes an enormous amount of effort, and sometimes you can't even overcome it. And reputation is a scorecard for trust. And for our company, being promise keepers, folks, that when we make a promise or a prediction, we're doing it with extraordinary confidence because we're focusing on a process rather than a product, and we're focused on what that really says about the character of who we are. And I've lived in the world with an impugned character for a season, and it's something that it shaped me, and it was a hard lesson. It was probably one of the most valuable personally in my life. And now I want to give that gift to those that give us trust, to make sure, number one, is as they provide trust, we're providing them with the knowledge and understanding that our processes are built and designed and with the end in mind. One thing that Stephen R. Covey always talked about in the 7 Habits is begin with the end in mind. This business will end at some point in time. Our lives ultimately end. And will you consider that you were better off because you knew me or knew our company and worked with us? And did we improve your reputation because we had that relationship?
There's a lot at risk in these oil wells. There's stakeholders, there's investors, there's employees, there's safety, there's lives at stake. But one thing we haven't really dealt deeply about is you talked about, you went through a season where you've returned with this insight. Talk a little bit more about that and why.
Well, I think folks know about that, but maybe not. When we sold Smart Chemical to a set of investors, private equity investors, there was a promise and an expectation that we would continue to perform at high levels moving forward. And because we didn't take the time and build a process and create clarity about what the promise was, both of us, the investor group and the owner group, went through that relationship, and it was really extraordinarily bumpy, and ultimately led to me being fired as the leader at Smart, even though I was still the largest minority shareholder in the company. And in that, had to go back and really look at, how did I get here? How did I get to this place? And, we talk about disruption all the time and what we're doing in fracking with geology. And sometimes disruption is really good. And we need the disruption that fracking causes. I needed the disruption that was caused by going, hey, this isn't working. and we've decided to make a decision to go another direction. And at that point in time, I thought that was the end of me, but I found that it was the beginning of um, giving great clarity, and started my journey on being a recovering know-it-all. And truly there understanding what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be, and my why for my life going forward.
So then Refined is born. And, one of the things you say is every decision made at the well site echoes far beyond production curves. And every decision made in your life does the same thing, whatever your personal production curve is.
That's
And
right.
I think that fits really well into your mantra and why protecting people's reputations is so a big part of the culture.
And I would share, that disruption was a 10x moment in my life. At the moment when it was happening, it felt like it was going to be a negative 10x, and it actually propelled my ability to learn and create clarity around in this season of life, taking what I've learned and being able to share it and give it to others. And then just being blessed by the opportunity to buy back the completion division at from Smart and start Refined. That was another one of those 10x moments that when we sold the business, I never imagined we would have the opportunity to bring it back and then live in this world where we have the discovery of why wells fail.
Mm-hmm. So in this episode, we talked about, why we wanted to impact engineering integrity and is how it's inseparable from professional reputation. And so part of the things you want to make promises you want to keep. And the refined way, or the Pathfinder prediction process, provides for that. Talk more specifically.
It's it's understanding what is the standard that you're going to use. And there's good process and bad process. Bad process tends to use a lot of normalizing factors.
What do you mean by that?
Normalizing it is measuring two things that are not equal, but taking, for example, is a yard in length? The answer is yes. A mile is made up of a bunch of yards. Well, if there's things that happen over a trajectory of a long period of time, 12 inches is a lot more stable than 1,000 feet, right? It's when we're doing measurements, we need to make sure that the measurement is equal. And it goes to what we believe is sound science, is you only make one factor change at a time to measure its impact. And in a world that's in a hurry, many times processes, or in this case, chemical products, are measured without everything being standardized and normal in the test. And, when we go back and look at, we have a 10 well trial that was done by one of our longest customers. And in that, they made sure everything was exactly the same, except for they removed our products that were part of our process out of that completion and went to an industry normal standard because it's cheaper. and everybody else was doing it. They wanted to measure because they had not done anything in 8 years any different. And the discovery was the wells that went back to this practice that was cheap, that was about products, not process, those wells are performing over a 3-year period. They're making on average $3.5 million a well less over 36 months. It's a big deal. And so that's when you do these kind of evaluations, that was a blessing that they did it in a scientific method, and they had a statistical population, same target geology. You look at all the measurements, they did a scientific process to understand the impact. That is a way to protect reputation. Because if you had just gone cheap, you would have never had the ability to measure. You would have thought, hey, this is just what we got and this is what we're going to get. You didn't have a way to truly measure that impact. And so that's one of the key things about our processes is we evaluate and measure. We're doing it in individual processes and then taking and looking at the cumulative compounding effect of those changes, not just one at a time. Or actually, we're doing it one at a time, but not doing all the changes one at a time.
Remind me again, one time you told me how many variables were at play that.
There's 242 variables that are at play when you're looking at the impacts that from the fracking process and the disruption that it does to the geology. And so there's really a standard of 5 different mechanisms. And then there's 3 variables within those mechanisms. So you're 5 to the power of 3, which is 242. And that's where that analysis and the analytics come from, to make sure that we're looking at everything and that the information is congruent. When you start having outliers, it means there's something going on in the process, or you're not getting the response from the changes that you've made. It should be consistent across those variables.
248? 242 variables. It's impossible to make gut call on that and hit a good average, right?
Right.
So having this process that you have these 10 rules that are very deliberate inside the organization. 242 variables, to just wing it, the odds are way against you. And so to have a process and to have a belief system or these 10 rules creates an environment of success, because you're following through, and it doesn't fall to just what mood you're in that day. Falls to the process.
That's correct.
So you have this culture. Great, Lloyd. You're making us profit down home, but that wasn't enough for you. You wanted this concept or this principle to be at play in the culture of refined completions. Where else does it prove out to be a positive for the companies that partner with you guys?
Well, it's funny. I'm reviewing the book right now, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And in that book, the number one key is trust. And I remember, golly, all the way back in 2011, when I read the book for the first time, that's why the trust rule became rule number 1, give trust, earn trust. And really before that, we had said the safety rule is number 1, but ultimately we're talking safety is a trust. We have to trust each other with the ability, with our choice to work together. So as we look at that, there's, trust is something that takes a lot of time to build, and one event can remove it all. And so when we were building Smart and then moving into Refined, we made some changes, but our core 4 principles of the 10 rules, those core 4 are they're the boundaries and they're the expectation. The other 6 rules are how we practice those 4. And again, it's process, right? And the core 4 establish our why. And the last 6 again is how we practice them. And so, same thing within the Pathfinder process. We've got a set of core foundational rules: the law of equilibrium, the law of disruption, and then we apply the constant that we discovered on what happens when you do that and how you can measure. Did we bring that geology back into a place of dynamic equilibrium, or is it staying in disruption? And how do you measure that? And again, that's not the only way that we can be people that are making promises. You can also call that predictions. This well is going to perform this way because of our process. And if and when it doesn't, now we have an ability to go, what did we miss? What's a variable that we believed was happening that didn't?
And that allows you to adjust and improve.
Learn. Yeah, you learn. Just the other day, you and I were working together and creating more clarity around our website. And your team came up and said, hey, really, every well teaches us for the next one. And that's an absolute fact because you're measuring that impact at every step of the way, right? Post completion, there's still work being done. Did we keep our promise? And how do we know we kept our promise? And those are that's important in every part of our life.
One of the people crave, it's like this crazy competitive advantage to just be trustworthy. It's like we're relieved when we get a vendor that comes in and does a good job, and we have this stress, we have this anxiety around, is this person going to be trustworthy? Can I trust them? We don't expect them to be perfect, but to be trustworthy. And one of the most inspiring events was the event where you had Stephen M.R. Covey speak at a dinner. And that was like a very successful event for Smart at the time. And I was, I thought about it. Why was that such a hit? Because it wasn't about how to frack better. It was bringing Stephen M.R. Covey to talk about trust. And it was really cool to see all those diverse organizations that you brought Stephen in to talk to. But like afterwards, those companies came forward and wanted to have a closer relationship with Smart at the time. It's like, we didn't even talk about oil. That's right.
It was amazing. And then good old COVID showed up, right?
No.
I mean, literally, it's funny, but you talk about building trust. When I wrote the book, Refined by Failure, Breaking Rules and Getting Burned, I reached out to Stephen based on that one event in our meeting and asked him if he would write a foreword for the book. And he told me no to the foreword, but he said, I'll read it and I will give you my impression, and I'll write you up something and you can take that and use it. And it was because he trusted me from learning about our rules. And since the book was about the rules that this event was centered around, right? Mm-hmm. I now have a relationship with somebody that is an icon in industry, but I read and I teach and I lead based on books that he's written. And that's a pretty, I want to call it cool, but it's humbling. It's,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also, that blessing by stepping out there, asking him to come do that event.
Yeah.
And it was just really, there's a lot of serendipitous choices by wanting to help set a standard that's different. And that's what that day was about, was to say, hey, we're not perfect, but this is why you can trust us, because when we do make mistakes, we're going to own up to it. And that leads me to the point of being perfect or never being wrong and being a know-it-all is, as it creates somebody that's untrustworthy, because there is no perfection. Jesus Christ is the only one that's ever walked this earth and been perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole reason that we need a savior is because God didn't create us to be perfect.
Mm-mm.
He gave us that free will, but ultimately, are we learning? Are we taking and I met a guy the other day and we're having a wonderful conversation. We're talking about who we were in the past and who we are today. And he made this statement. He said, his name's Mo, by the way. Mo said to me, he goes, I'm the same human, but I'm not the same person.
Mm.
And that's part of why we have built a company and continue to focus on protecting the reputation, because the person that I used to be is not who I am today. And the revelation of that fact is my focus is not on growing a company really fast and taking shortcuts and getting burned by breaking rules, into understanding the real consequence of doing that on your personal and corporate reputation.
But where I was wanting to take this next is, because of this deliberate focus on culture and protecting reputations, et cetera, the outcome is that a company that partners with you is you have a patent on this process that is a product of this overarching process of refined completions and protecting reputations.
Absolutely. And it's also living in the world of why. I love Simon Sinek and his book, Start With Why. It's one of the most impactful books I've ever read. And when you're not a know-it-all, you get to learn, because you're asking why. Why does this do this? Why did we make this decision? You, instead of being defensive and defending something that didn't go the way that you wanted to, you're looking at it as an opportunity to learn more and get better. That's trustworthy.
The way that I kind of look at it is that, Lloyd's why is he's wanting to help this company run a better business, not buy a better chemical, right?
That's right.
And so that's Lloyd's why, but he ended up with a significant patent that was measured externally by an organization that validates the process that you follow just because of your why. I mean, that's where it all, otherwise you just would have been another chemical company.
That's correct. I'm sitting here pondering what you said. It's funny, but initially we wanted to be right.
But
there was a desire to be right, and so our why was not correct at the beginning.
Well, I don't think wanting to be right necessarily is bad, but being open to having it measured and proved is where the
Well, and that's part, that's the beautiful part of a patent. A patent, when a patent authority like the European Patent Office issues this patent, it's their reputation at risk. And so they're very thorough. And one of the reasons we went to Germany for the evaluation was because their reputation on chemistry-based patents is the best in the world. And then the best evaluator with the greatest authority and reputation said this is completely unique, and there's no prior art of this thought or discovery anywhere in the world. Congratulations. Pretty cool.
Really cool. No, just some deliberate 10 rules. Real quick, the core 4, run through those before we wrap up, please.
Give trust, earn trust. Rule number 2 is the safety rule. If you don't go home at night, nothing else matters. Rule number 3 is the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. And rule number 4 is profit first, which means that you can then have fun. And that's one of the big changes. We used to have the fun rule. You spend more time at work than you do anywhere else. It might as well be fun. But if you're not focusing on profit first, means we're being a good steward with the resources that we've been given. And being good stewards is fun.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Being good stewards, you're just helping these companies be good stewards of these investments, of these wells, of their resources.
That's our goal.
Yeah. All right. It's a good time to be refined. Lloyd, any last stuff? Someone's been listening. All right. I want to meet this joker. I want to talk to Lloyd. How do they contact you?
Lloyd.brown@refinedcompletions.com or at refined C Lloyd B. Again, it's funny. It's so very poor at that. I need to get better. I need to.
No, we were making you wait just a little extra second.
Yeah, you were. I had to have the cheat sheet.
All right. Another great episode of Why Wells Fail and Yet Ultimately Succeed with Refined Completions. And that's a great, another great conversation with you, Lloyd. Have a great week. We'll see everyone next week. And that's a wrap.